So we're on Daf Tzadi Beis, and we got up to Af Rabbi Eliezer Sovar. And that's about 15 lines down from the top of the Yom. The first word in the line is Mishum. Mishum de Tosu. And that gives us a springboard that Rava wanted to prove that in a case where she got a psak bezdin based on one aid, so we have one witness that testified that her husband was dead. And just going to quickly read it. He says, Teda de Tosu on top of Daf Tzadi Beis. De ilu horu bezdin bechelev ubedam le'tera v'chazu v'harachazu v'harachazu taima li'sura ki hadre be v'amre le'tera lo mishkachina lo. The ilu echad the asa eid echad sharina asu trei asarna v'chi hadar asi trei eid achrina sharina lo. My timer lav mishum de tosu. So again, just to summarize, normally, if you start with a heter and then you go to an iser and then back to a heter, if the Oras Bezdin went through that process, then we don't accept the new heter. Once they accepted and established the iser, we don't go back to heter. Here in our case, when another aid comes in at the end, we go back to heter. And in Rava's mind, that's proof positive that the original Ora is Ora's Tos, meaning it's not even Ora, it doesn't register as Ora. If it would have registered, then we would not reinstate or resurrect the original Heter after the Bezdin rescinded it when the second aid came in to testify that our husband's alive. The Af Rabbi Eliezer Sovar, he also agrees to Ze'iri, the Tos, that when a woman gets a heter from Bezdin based on one testimony, that's called tos, meaning it's not a hora at all. Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, a woman was allowed to get remarried, a married woman, based on the testimony of one witness. Now we find out her husband's alive. And you and I would have said that since she relied on the Heter Bezdin, and Bezdin relied on the one aid, and she got married, therefore she doesn't have to bring a carbon because the brunt of the responsibility is on Bezdin. It's like Parahel and Davishal Tzibur. Yikov Adin Sahar. What does that mean? Literally means that justice will undermine mountains. It's an idiomatic phrase. Poskim es Adin, Achar Omek Hadvarim, Shehi tos v'lo ora. Hainu shanesuin hayu al smach eid echad v'lo al smach oras bezdin v'tavi chata shmeina. So according to this brisa, clearly Rabbi Eliezer disagrees with our Mishnah and obligates her to bring a chata shmena. And why is this? Because when she was married based and relying on the testimony of one aid, that's not considered oras bezdin. Therefore, we cannot shift the chiyuv carbon, the responsibility to bring a carbon from her over to the bezdin, because the bezdin did not issue a hora. If you're going to void and annul the original heter that Bezdin gave her to get married based on one aid, and that's not called Ora, then Yishum Hachi Maisa carbon. Therefore, she has to bring a carbon because there was never Horas Bezdin. Ella I Amit Orahi, which means that if we're going to accept the sheet of Rav Nachman, that when Bezdin relied on one aid, they issued a ruling, and that ruling is chal. It has the full status of Oras Bezdin. It's a my Maisya carbon. Why does Rabbi Eliezer say in this brisa that she's obligated to bring a carbon? If you're telling me it's Hora, and that ruling which Bezdin handed out based on the testimony of one aid is a Hora, then she can shift we will shift the responsibility as far as carbon is concerned over to the Bezdin, and she would not bring a carbon. So the Gemara now wants to deflect this proof and reinterpret Rabbi Eliezer. Vidilma Asava Rabbi Eliezer Yochid Sha'asa Boras Bezdin Ayah. In other words, the Parhel of David Shal Tzibur Parsha, which exempts each individual from his own personal obligation to bring a carbon, that only applies when you're dealing with a tzibur, when you're dealing with the myriads of people who violated this Isur based on the Horas Bezdin. But in the case of a Yachid, meaning the Psak Bezdin was not relevant to anybody except for one individual, and whether she could marry another man or not. So in such a case, even if there was a Horas Bezdin, the Yachid has to bring his own carbon, because that Horas Bezdin was only relevant to one person. And it's not a Parahelim David Shal Tzibur, which shifts the responsibility for the carbon from the Tzibur over to the Bezdin. Now, I want to read to you a short footnote here. He says, Halacha zu shnuya b'machlokes Rabbi Yehuda v'chachamim b'mesechta horios. She Rabbi Yehuda sover yachid sha'asa b'ras bezdin patur mishum sha'asa b'shus bezdin v'chachamim soverim chayim. So it could be, says the Gemara, that Rabbi Eliezer holds like the Chachamim that Yochid Shasa Boras Bezdin is Chayav. So the Gemara rejects this. This could not explain Rabbi Eliezer, who says that she has to bring a korban. In Cain, because if that's the interpretation of Rabbi Eliezer, what did he mean when he said, quote, Yikov hadin es hahar? Yikov hadin es hahar means that we could have come to a logical conclusion, but it would be a mistaken conclusion, that she doesn't have to bring a korban. But Yikov hadin es hahar means that if you look carefully into the din, you'll see that she is chayeves b'korban. Because again, if you're telling me that Yochid Shasa Boras Bezdin Chayav, then there's no havamina that she should be potter. Yikov hadin es hahar means your havamina to potter up is incorrect. But what do you mean havamina? Okay, now we move on. The Mishnah says, Haru bezdin li nase. So let's go back to the Mishnah. It's been a while since we saw the Mishnah. It's actually the last line in this long Mishnah at the beginning of the parak. And it says, Haru bezdin li nase, beholcha v'kilkala, so he writes here in the Masechet, he writes, Kigon almana shenisa l'kohen gadol. V'chein im avra al shar isurei lavim shel nesuin, chayeves b'korban shelo hitirua el li nase. I'm not sure how to interpret this. So we're talking about a case of an almana l'kohen gadol, and a kohen gadol is not allowed to marry an almana. The holcha v'kilkala. I don't know what holcha v'kilkala is. For that, we have to learn our Gemara. But in such a case, the Mishnah Paskin says she brings a korban or mechatos. Why? Because lo hitiru bezdin el li nase. I guess linose means to marry someone kedasu kedin, that she's allowed to marry. My kilkula, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer the Amora, im lo nisa li'acher elezinsa kshi pnuya. Zeu bechlal kilkula v'chayeves bekarba. So it means that Bezdin gave her an okay to get married, and she went ahead and she had an out of wedlock relationship. And she has to bring a carbon. Rabbi Yochanan Omar almana l'kohen gadol, grusha v'chalutza l'kohen hedge. And what does the word kilkala mean? It means she had nisuin be'isa. Not like Rabbi Lezer, who spoke about znus, which is with a pnuya. Manti Omer zinsa. If I hold like Rabbi Eliezer, that she was a pnuya, and that's called kilkala, and she's chayeves bekarban. Kolchkein almana l'kohen gadol grusha v'chalutza l'kohen hedge chayeves bekarban, because they violate a law. In other words, Bezdin did not give her the green light to marry a Kohen Gadol, but to marry a Kohen Hedge in the case of Gruta V'Chalutza. Again, let's go over it one more time. Our Mishnah says that she doesn't have to bring a carbon when she marries another man because she relied on Heter Bezdin. But now she didn't rely on Heter Bezdin if she went ahead and had snus. For that, she should have to bring a carbon. She's an Eishes Isha Zinsa. Or alternatively, a Bezdin did not allow her as an almana to marry a Kohen Gadol. Or if she's a grusha or a chalutza, Bezdin's not going to give her an okay to marry a Kohen. So therefore, she's not relying on the Heter Bezdin, and therefore she has to bring a carbon. But Mandi Omar, if you hold, like Rabbi Yochanan, that our mission of Kilkala is Almana L'Kohen Gadol, etc., that's when she's chayiv a carbon. But Zinsa, lo, in the case where she had his nus, she would not be obligated to bring a carbon. I timer. Why in the case of Znus is she proven a carbon? The Omra Asun Hu de Shavisin Pnuya. She has the right to say to Bezdin that you made me into a Pnuya. You gave me a heter to get married. Yeah, I'll read to you his translation. He says, Atem asisem osi pnuya umuteres lakol shekevan sheitartem osi li nase vade shedantem osi kipnuya. Masha'enkein esun shalamar lekoin gadol lekach lo hitiro osa bebezdin. So again, what's the difference between znus here and almana lekoin gadol? Now I'm thinking that maybe this footnote will shed a light on this sugya. Achronim hikshu. Let's see if this is relevant. Ma chiluk ein zinso li almana lekoin gadol ubefrat l'shitas harambam shebeilas nus lokin min haTorah alav shelo tia kedesha. Im kain v'meyo sechamur alav shel almana lekoin gadol be'alav shel nus. I think he's asking our question, but we'll be smarter if we see that the answer helps us. Ubeshut no to be Yehuda beer shebezinsa v'nivala lekasha lo v'yisiachol li nase lo behete b'im kain af shenivalo biznus mikoma komi nechsheves legabav lepnuya kevan shahisam muteres lo b'chuppah v'kiddushin masha ein kain b'almana lekoin gadol shaliolam lo haisi yachol li nase lo shayach lo mashasu b'pnuya shrei kohen hakohen lo haya b'chlal haheter shitirua bezdin li nase. One thing I see from the Nod of Yehuda, he's connecting her action to the abstract formulation of the Bezdin. Bezdin said, go out and get married. She could have married this fellow. So having a relationship with someone that she could have gotten married to is not a violation of Hitirua Linasa. Because they said, go get married. And included in that heter is any sort of relationship with someone that she could get married to. Very abstract. Tanya Kavosei de Rabbi Yochanan, that the Mishnah, when it says kilkul, it's referring to the Nesui Almana Lekoin Gadol, Ubrusha V'chalutza Lekoin Hedjot. But Zinsa is not included under kilkula. Is Horua Bezdin Li Nose. V'holcha v'kilkal akigon almona l'koin gadol agrusha v'chalutz l'koin hedjot. Not sure why, why the Brisa chooses these cases. I mean, there's so many cases of Nesue Iser. Anyway, Chayeves Bekarban, I'll call Bio Bio. Divrei Rabbi Elazar. Chachamim Omrim, Karban Echad Al Hakol. What does that mean? Karban Echad Al Hakol. That not every Bia generates a separate independent Chatos, but she could cover all the Bios with one single Chatos. Shesobrim Chacham, Shekeven Shekol HaBios Haya B'toch Helem Echad Mea Isur, Tre Lo Nodala Ben Bia LeBia Shehi Asura, Harei Zeh Ke'ochel Shtei Kezesim Chelev Behelem Echad Shechayv Rak Chatas Achas. Umodim Chacham L'Rabbi Eliezer Shem Niseis L'Chamisha B'nei Adam Shechayeves B'Karban Hakol Echad V'Echad Hoil V'Gufin Mechulakin. So again, let's just think, how does this Brisa establish Rabbi Yochanan that Kilkala means Nisue Almana? Because the Brisa says, Haru Bezdin Li Nase, V'holcha V'Kilkala Kigon Almana L'Koin Gadol. I mean, if we'd accept Rabbi Eliezer, then the Brisa should have given us examples of Zinsa. But what's interesting about this Brisa, in and of itself, is this internal machlokes about how many karbanos she has to bring in the case of Kilkala. And Rabbi Elazar is of the opinion that she needs a karban for every single Maisa Bia that she had. And that's called Bios Mechalkos L'chayvek Chatos. Every Bia is Mechayev unto itself. So if a person mistakenly thought that he's allowed to have a relationship with this woman, every single Bia, when it clarifies it, is going to set up a separate chiyuv. That's Rabbi Elazar. And the Chachamim say that no, there's no such thing as Bios Mechalkos. There's only Gufim Mechalkim. So it's the same, if it's the same man that she continuously had a Bia with, one karban suffices for everything. But let's just quickly learn the Mishnah so we have a little bit of a far for tomorrow. And now we're talking about a woman who got married in the Shuk, the Shogeg, based on two Eidim. Isha shaholach baila ubna lemedina sayam bo v'yomrla meis bailech v'achkach meis b'neich. Tragic news. Now, what that means is that at the moment that her husband died, her son was still alive, which means that there is no yibum. In Nises. So based on this testimony, she got married to someone else. Now, I'm not sure who's talking here. Amru la. But let's assume whatever it is, two Adam come in and now say it's just the opposite, and her ben died before her husband died, and therefore she falls for Yibum, and she in the meantime got married to another man, Tete. V'avlad Rishon v'achron mamzer. All right, so that last part we'll have to analyze. Avlad shenolala mimenu kevad shenis abra mimenu lifnei shenolad nodala shemes baila, or nis abra mimenu yachar shenodala. It's irrelevant, and he's a mamzer. So we'll see about this tomorrow. Okay, then let me wish you a great day, and thank you.